Well, hello again. Welcome to Elroy Life. My name is Paul Stamp. Join us in this enlightening conversation with a single parent mom who lived in New York City as we explore the power of hope and how it enables single parents to rise above their challenges. Let us plunge into this right now. Well, of course, we have been talking about finding hope in the midst of single parenting challenges. And today we have a very special guest, and she's going to be talking towards that subject. And so I'm going to ask her to introduce herself, tell us her name and a little bit about her, where she's from. Go right ahead.
My name is Jean Batiste Chin. I'm originally from Grenada. I've lived in America for the past 30 years, most of which was spent in New York, and now I live in the wonderful state of Texas.
All right, well, welcome. It's good to have you today as you're here with us, sharing your own experience relating to hope. I'm going to ask you to tell us about some of your most difficult challenges you face as a single parent.
Some of the most difficult challenges I faced. My son was 7 years old. I was separated and got divorced, and it was challenging in three areas for me. We usually say love, food, and security, which is shelter, is needed. And in those three areas, it was very difficult. First off, I was a nurse, worked nights, and there was no one but my son at home, except those who were renters from me. So basically, he was alone at night on the first floor, and it was very concerning for me. Can you imagine a 7-year-old being by themselves if there's an emergency at night? No one is there to call early in the morning to wake him up so he can get ready for school. And it was a very trying time. It was worrying for me because security was a concern. That was very hard. It was very difficult on both of us.
Away from that, with your son, what are some of the most difficult times that you've had as a single parent?
As a single parent, we had to make the sacrifice of saving the home to continue with shelter, because there was a time I was solely responsible for the mortgage. I remember there was a time when I literally rent out the entire house except for a room, and we lived in that room for quite a while so that we can maintain that shelter, which obviously gave him a bit of security, myself also. But that was very challenging for me. And
similarly, there are a number of single parents right now that are having, similar issues to what you went through. For example, after you got divorced and you were going through this trying time after you got divorced. Now, how did you manage to keep going? What you had in terms of hope? How did hope help you in this situation?
The one thing I can tell anyone, I found hope in Jesus. Mm-hmm. When it happened, I literally, Psalm 34, verse 6 and 7, became real to me. I cried out to the Lord physically and in prayer, and He heard me. Mm-hmm. And there are times when I would talk to Him, and for those people who might think they don't hear from God, but I did. And sometimes when He answered me, I would say, Lord, you're quick. I remember there was a time when I'm standing in New York, in Queens, and I went to the bank to buy something, and the account was frozen. And I literally stood there and I says, Lord, if I want to buy a box of juice for my son, I had nothing. While I was there, I heard, don't cry, it's okay. Call your job and tell them you misplaced your check. And I did. Another time, I think the IRS froze my account, and I had nothing. And I called out to God, but God was always prepared for me. I remember driving home. When I got home, there was a check in the mail for $10,000. I cried because I had an accident, and that was the result of the accident. And These are just two instances, and I can tell you of many, many more, where God, every time I call on him, he would answer. He protected my son when I called on him, and I wasn't even aware of how much he did. Recently, I found out my son said, Mom, when he went to work at night, he would play in the light sockets. He would drive head first down the banisters. And he said, I used to do it as a sport. And I remember calling on God at night, driving to work, and say, Lord, he's alone. Please be with him.
And you mentioned that you had to leave your son at home alone at the age of 7. Now, years ago, I was a CPS investigator myself, and that's something that would be a no-no. I know today that a lot of parents, single parents, are doing just that, but it's not the best thing for children, of course, because CPS could take your child for neglect. Now, were you a believer before you got divorced, or no?
I was a believer, but not to the extent that I went to church. But during the course of the divorce, the Lord became more real and personal to me. And as you talk about the part with CPS, what happened, the home I used to rent, and I rent to like a professor and a foreign student. And I literally went to them and explained my situation. So although he was alone at night on our floor, there were people in the house. Probably if there was an emergency, they can. But many, God sent so many people in my lives.
So you had a good support system then, would you say?
Yes, I would say that God surrounded me with godly women at work. With my ex-boss, they were a Jewish family, godparents, and the support system that God knew that I needed. He literally sent help. For instance, I used to work nights, and when I cried to God, I said, when I got closer with him, I said, God, I don't want to work on a Sundays. Now, nurses have shifts Sunday on, Sunday off. And I remember after I cried out to the Lord, my supervisor came to me and she said, what do you want? And I was one of the only nurses who did not work on a Sundays, and I was able to change my shift.
Wonderful. Now, there are a lot of single parents that are watching, and right now, what would you say to single parents that are going through similar situation with you in regards to the topic at hand, which is hope? What encouragement would you give to single parents concerning hope?
The first thing I would like to say, in my instance, I can tell you what worked. And calling on Jesus, reaching out to God, is like he was there waiting, saying, Jean, like I said, he was prepared for me. And a lot of the things that was happening, I didn't expect it to happen. But when I call on God, he showed up mightily. So I would advise anyone going through a situation, call on the Lord, because he was there for me through thick and thin. It might sound cliche, but it really worked. Even for those going through a divorce as a single parent, I had anger. And when you're angry, how much love can you be showing and you're hurting? Remember that what you have is what you're going to give out. And I call on the Lord. And I says, God, I don't know how to forgive. The Lord asked me to forgive him. I said, teach me how to forgive. And he did. And I would tell anyone out there, don't carry hate. Forgive. And if you don't know how, ask the Lord. He would show you. Don't be disparaging about the other person with your children. It hurts the children. I can tell you that firsthand. And trust God. He will make a way.
Okay, I want to thank you, Jean, for sharing your experience today. And of course, I'm sure that you have a lot more that you could share, but because this is a short program today, I want to say thank you. Now your son is an adult, and of course, if you're watching, this has been a source of encouragement for you as a single parent. If you're losing hope, remember that there is a higher power, and as she shared, that her higher power was Jesus Christ. May God bless you, and thank you for watching. Now let me encourage you to find the strength within yourself and realize that you are not alone in this journey. Every challenge presents an opportunity for growth, and every setback is a chance to bounce back stronger. If this video resonated with you, please consider subscribing to our channel for more inspiring content. In our next video, we will be showcasing parenting with purpose, inspiring your children through adversity. See you then.